Hey guys, tonight we trek across the frozen expanse of the Arctic, where the air hums with the whip of icy winds and the faint flutter of kites dancing against a starlit sky. Picture yourself, bundled in furs your breath frosting, as Inuit hunters raise kites high above shifting ice floes, their signals mapping safe paths to seal hunts. You're diving into a world where every tug of a kite string is a lifeline, and one wrong signal could plunge you through the ice. Spoiler, you probably won't survive this frigid maze without a few shivers. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your city and local time. I'm curious where you're drifting off from tonight. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're in the Arctic tundra around the 19th century, in a place like Baffin Island, where Inuit hunters use kites crafted from caribou hide and driftwood to map the treacherous ice floes. These aren't just toys. They're tools. They're signals, tugs, dips, or loops, guiding hunters to stable ice paths or warning of cracks hiding under snow. Why kites? Because in the vast, featureless Arctic, where blizzards blur horizons, kites rise above the chaos, their strings a language of survival. Imagine you're a hunter, your hands numb as you tug a kite's line, its dip signaling a safe crossing. One misstep, and you're not just lost. You're in the sea's icy grip. Historically, the Inuit thriving across modern Canada and Greenland were master navigators, their oral traditions and tools, like kites, sustaining communities through harsh winters. Kites were part of their hunting toolkit, used to map ice or distract prey. Here's the quirky bit. Some hunters believed kites spoke to the wind spirits, their flutters carrying messages from Sedna, the sea goddess. Sounds wild, right? Like your GPS chatting with the clouds. Historians still argue whether this was spiritual belief or practical metaphor. Did kites really speak? Or were hunters reading wind patterns? You pause by a frozen ridge, the air sharp with frost, and the distant bark of sled dogs, catching a hunter's kite, soaring its hide taut against the gale. The signal, a sharp tug, warns of thin ice ahead, meant for his kin trailing behind. You squint, but the kite's dance eludes you, designed for those who know its sacred code. These signals weren't for everyone. Only trained hunters, elders, or shamans could read them, guarding the band's survival. You smirk, thinking it's like cracking a secret Wi-Fi code, tricky but vital. You step closer, the hunter's kite string taut in his gloved hands. He's not just mapping, he's communing with the ice, his signals binding the band to Sedna's domain. You're starting to feel the weight of his craft, each tug a whisper of survival. Ever navigate a tricky path just right? That's the hunter's game, played with kites in the Arctic's frozen glow. But the real magic unfolds in their ice camps, where these signals take flight and you're about to slip into their wind-swept sacred world. You're trudging across the frozen expanse of Baffin Island's tundra, the Arctic air biting your face with the scent of salt and frost, the distant howl of wind blending with the faint flutter of a kite overhead. The starlit horizon shimmers, but you're still chasing those kite signals, guiding Inuit hunters to map ice floes, their sharp tugs warning of hidden cracks. Remember that hunter pulling his caribou hide kite to signal safe ice. His sacred craft was born in the ice camps, the heart of Inuit survival. Now you're exploring these wind-swept hubs where kites took flight, and trust me, it's colder than a seal's dive, but twice as gripping. Picture yourself stumbling into a low-slung ice camp, its snow-block igloos glowing faintly under the aurora, the air thick with the tang of blubber lamps and drying seal pelts. Hunters huddle around a driftwood fire, their kites stitched from hide, tethered with sinew, stacked nearby, ready to map the floes at dawn. These aren't just shelters. They're sacred spaces blessed by shamans to honor Sedna and the wind spirits, where kite signals are crafted to guide hunts or mark safe crossings. Historically, by the 19th century, Inuit ice camps were seasonal hubs supporting communities like those on Baffin Island through cooperative hunting and navigation with kites as vital tools. You're watching a hunter adjust his kite sinew line, his hand steady, as he tests a dip signal for thin ice, ensuring his band's path tomorrow. Here's the quirky bit. Some hunters believed their kites danced with the aurora, their flutters syncing with sky spirits to guide signals. Imagine your kite grooving with the northern lights. Sounds like an Arctic rave, right? Historians still argue whether this was spiritual belief or a navigational trick. Did kites dance with spirits, or were hunters reading atmospheric cues? You step closer, the camp's chill numbing your fingers. The hunter's dip, a subtle flick of the wrist, isn't just a signal, it's a prayer marking a stable flow for his kin sleds. These camps are alive, their kite signals a symphony of survival, each tug a vow to Sedna's sea. You're struck by the precision, how a sinew's pull aligns hunting with the ice's pulse. It's like syncing your GPS to a storm's rhythm, but for catching seals. You smirk, thinking of your own navigation hacks. Ever find your way with a gut feeling? That's the hunter's art, tethered to the camp's snowy heart. You notice an elder nearby, his face etched with wind-borne, guiding a young hunter to read a kite's loop, ensuring it warns of a crack's edge. The elder's role is vital. Only trained eyes catch the signal's sacred rhythm, a skill passed through stories around blubber lamps. A misread tug could lead a sled through thin ice, dooming the band. You wince, imagining the hunter's stress. It's like misreading a map app, but with your clan survival at stake. You chuckle, picturing the elder squinting at a kite like you double-check a road sign. The camp's sanctity demands precision, often sealed with offerings, seal blood or bone to appease the spirits. You run your fingers along a kite's hide, its stitches taut as the ice's surface. The signals aren't just practical, they're the camp's soul, tying hunters to Sedna's tides and the aurora's glow. You're hooked, seeing these igloos as more than shelters, they're altars, each kite a prayer flown high. You recall that sharp tug warning of thin ice, its rhythm sparking the hunter's path. These signals aren't just flown, they're spiritual, woven with divine will, and you're about to see how faith shaped every flutter under Baffin's starry sky. As you huddle by the fire, the camp's rhythm dog whines, wind howls, feels like a frozen heartbeat. You're starting to grasp the hunter's world, their ice camps, not just hubs, but cradles of sacred navigation. Those kite signals are their legacy, but their spiritual roots make them soar, and you're itching to unravel their holy thread. You're huddled in the biting chill of a Baffin Island ice camp, the Arctic night, thick with the scent of burning blubber and the faint crackle of snow underfoot, the aurora's glow dancing above. The camp hums with the soft bark of sled dogs and the flutter of kites tethered nearby. But you're still chasing those kite signals, guiding Inuit hunters to map ice floes their dips, warning of treacherous cracks. Remember that hunter testing his kite sinew line by the fire? His sacred craft took flight in this camp, but its pulse came from the spirit. Now you're diving into how spirituality shaped these kite signal rituals. And trust me, it's deeper than the sea beneath Sedna's icy throne. Picture yourself crouched by an igloo's entrance, its snow blocks gleaming as a hunter raises his kite, its caribou hide taut offering a silent prayer to Sedna, the sea goddess. The signal, a sharp loop, isn't just a cue. It's a divine message believed to carry the wind spirit's guidance, marking safe ice for a seal hunt. In Inuit cosmology, kites were sacred tools, their flutters linking hunters to spirits like Sedna or Sela, the sky deity, their signals woven with spiritual power. Hunters didn't just fly kites. They communed offering chants or seal blood to honor the spirits before mapping floes. Historically, by the 19th century, Inuit spirituality infused all survival practices with rituals ensuring harmony with the Arctic's forces, as seen in communities like those in Nunavut. You're watching the hunter murmur a chant to Sela, his kite's tug a plea for a stable path. Here's the quirky bit. Some hunters believed kites sang during blizzards, their hums echoing Sedna's voice to guide lost souls. Imagine your kite belting a spiritual tune. Sounds like an Arctic ballad, right? Historians still argue whether this was spiritual belief or a wind-reading trick. Did kites really sing? Or were hunters hearing storm patterns? You step closer, the camp's frost numbing your face. The hunter's loop signal, swift and precise, isn't just navigation. It's a prayer aligning the hunt with Sedna's tides to ensure seals surface. These rituals are sacred, tying kites to cosmic harmony, with each flutter a note in Sila's symphony. You're struck by the intimacy, how a hunter's hands become a shrine, channeling divine will through sinew. It's like crafting a playlist that's also a lifeline, but for Arctic stakes. You smirk, thinking of your own moments of awe. Ever feel a breeze shift your mood? These hunters weave that shift into every signal. You notice a shaman nearby, his seal bone rattle shaking as he blesses the kite, ensuring its signals honor Sedna without straying into disrespect. His presence is vital. A flawed signal could anger the spirits, risking a failed hunt or a cracked flow. You wince, imagining the hunter's stress. It's like misreading a sacred DM, but with your band's survival at stake. You chuckle, picturing the hunter double-checking his kite's tug like you'd proofread a risky text. The spiritual stakes are sky high. A mistimed loop might curse the hunt, dimming the camp's sacred power. You run your fingers along a kite's driftwood frame, its hide whispering like a spirit's breath. The signals are subtle, meant for those who know hunters trained to read Sedna's rhythm, shamans decoding cosmic cues. The hunter's faith isn't just belief. It's discipline, their kites guided by blood offerings and starlit chants to keep the spirit's favor strong. You're hooked, seeing how spirituality shapes every flutter, turning kites into sacred maps. You recall that sharp loop by the fire, its ice warning sparking the hunt. These rituals aren't just flown, they're guarded by guilds, sacred brotherhoods who keep their secrets tight, and you're about to meet the hunters who safeguard this icy web under Baffin's starry sky. As you linger by the igloo, the camp's rhythm wind moans, dog snarls, feels like a sacred chant. You're starting to grasp the hunter's world, their spiritual rituals, not just mapping, but a pact with Sedna and Sela. Those kite signals are prayers in flight, but the guilds that guide them are the camp's pulse, and you're itching to explore their frozen circle. You're huddled in the icy gloom of a Baffin Island ice camp, the Arctic night, sharp with the scent of seal blubber and the faint creak of snow under sled runners. The camp pulses with the soft howl of wind and the flutter of kites tethered against the aurora. But you're still chasing those kite signals, guiding Inuit hunters to map ice floes, their loops, whispering Sedna's will. Remember that hunter praying to Sela before raising his kite by the igloo. His spiritual craft was a pact with the spirits, but he didn't fly alone. Now you're uncovering the secret guilds of hunters who guarded these kite-mapping rituals, and trust me, it's tighter than a sinew knot on a harpoon line. Picture yourself slipping into a low igloo, its snow walls glowing faintly, the air thick with the tang of blubber lamps, and the murmur of hunters chanting to the wind spirits. Men sit in a circle, their caribou hide kites stacked beside them, their voices low as they share tales of a Kwapkugak kite's dip that saved a sled from a crack. These aren't just hunters. They're a guild, a sacred brotherhood, bound by oaths to protect their kite signal knowledge. In Inuit society, hunting guilds often tied to clans or camps held the secrets of reading signals like tugs or loops, ensuring safe paths across floes. Historically, by the 19th century, Inuit communities like those in Nunavut relied on such groups to coordinate hunts. Their kite rituals, a communal art passed through generations. You're watching a master hunter correct a novice's tug on a practice line, his tone sharp, ensuring the signal for stable ice stays true. Here's the quirky bit. Some guilds used bone-carved tokens like miniature harpoons to mark members, believing they held Sedna's protection. Imagine flashing a tiny spear like a secret club badge. Sounds like a hunter's swagger. Right historians still argue whether these tokens were practical or ceremonial. Did they just mark loyalty or carry spiritual power? You edge closer, the igloo's chill numbing your hands. The master's tug, a steady pull, isn't just a signal. It's a code marking a safe flow for tomorrow's hunt, meant for his kin sleds. The guild's rules are ironclad. Masters teach the signals, novices tend dogs or mend kites, and no outsider learns the sacred rhythms. Betraying the guild, like sharing a loop's meaning with a rival camp, could mean exile, your name erased from the clan stories. You wince, imagining the shame. It's like getting kicked out of a group chat for leaking secrets, but with your whole band shunning you. You smirk, picturing the novice double-checking his tug like you'd proofread a risky post. Ever hide a secret too big to spill? That's their life flown on kite strings. You notice the guild's unity, their chants syncing with the wind's moan, each hunter a thread in a sacred weave. Their signals are the camp's pulse-linking sleds to Sedna's tides, ensuring seals are found and flows crossed safely. But secrecy breeds tension. A rival guild from a nearby camp might covet your dip signal, stealing it to claim your hunting grounds. You're struck by their vigilance, how they guard their craft like a Cometex load. It's like protecting your startup's app, but with spiritual stakes. You chuckle thinking of a hunter eyeballing a rival's kite like you'd side-eye a competitor's project. The igloo feels alive, a brotherhood where every tug binds them to Sela and the ice. You glance at a kite's frame, its driftwood etched with a seal motif, a nod to the guild's sacred signals. Their skill is eerie crafting kites that dance with precision, their signals a language only they speak. They're not just hunters, they're keepers of the camp's soul, their kites mapping survival through the Arctic's frozen veins. You're hooked, feeling their pride, but the elder's shadow looms their eyes, watching every string. You recall that Kokwap Kugiak's loop, its spiritual rhythm tied to Sedna. The elder's oversight is next shaping these cryptic signals, and you're itching to see how their will binds the guilds under Baffin's starry sky. As you slip out, the camp's rhythm, dog snarls, wind howls, feels like an icy heartbeat. You're starting to grasp the hunter's world, their guilds, not just clans, but sacred circles guarding the flow's secrets. Those kite signals are their legacy, but the elder's grip is firm, and you're ready to step into their watchful domain. You're trudging through the wind-swept chill of a Baffin Island ice camp. The Arctic dawn sharp with the scent of frozen seaweed and the faint glow of blubber lamps flickering in igloos. The tundra hums with the soft bark of sled dogs and the flutter of kites tethered against the aurora. But you're still chasing those kite signals, guiding Inuit hunters to map ice flows, their loops, whispering Sedna's sacred paths. Remember that master hunter correcting a novice's tug in the igloo. His guild guarded the camp's secrets, but they flew under a heavier gaze, the elders. Now, you're diving into how elders controlled these kite signal practices, and trust me, it's stricter than a harpoon's aim in a blizzard. Picture yourself skirting the edge of a snow-walled council igloo, its entrance draped with seal hides as hunters gather before an elder, his face etched with wind-borne and wisdom. A hunter kneels, his kite sinew line coiled in his hands, reporting a dip signal used to map a safe flow. These kite rituals aren't just navigation, they're communal mandates. Their tugs and loops marking stable ice or seal grounds, all under the elder's divine authority. Historically, by the 19th century, Inuit elders in regions like Nunavut held immense power, overseeing hunting practices to ensure survival and spiritual harmony, with kite signals aligned to the band's needs and Sedna's tides. You're watching the hunter present his kite's rhythm, his voice low, hand steady, but heart racing, knowing a flawed signal could mark him disloyal. Here's the quirky bit. Some hunters believed an elder's touch blessed their kites, making signals stronger if brushed by their hands. Imagine your boss's pat juicing up your gear sounds like an Arctic power trip, right? Historians still argue whether this was devotion or ritual respect. Did elders' touch really empower, or were hunters honoring tradition? You step closer, the igloo's chill numbing your fingers. The hunter's dip, a swift flick, maps a safe crossing for sleds meant to guide the band's hunt. The elder's oversight is relentless guilds, submit signal plans to their council, ensuring every tug aligns with seasonal winds or the aurora's pulse. A signal too bold, like a loop, used without approval, could be seen as defiance risking exile or a lost hunt. You wince imagining the hunter's dread. It's like pitching a risky plan to a CEO knowing they're watching. Except here, it's Sedna's wrath via the elders. You smirk, picturing the hunter double-checking his kite like you'd proofread a high-stakes text. You notice an elder's gaze linger, his seal-boned staff glinting like a warning. The council spies, senior hunters or kin, watch the guild sniffing for disloyalty. A mistimed signal could lead a sled through thin ice, endangering the band or offending the spirits. Hunters counter with cunning, sharing only partial signals with elders, their full rituals veiled in guild secrecy. You're struck by their nerve, how they weave loyalty into sinew while dodging scrutiny. It's like slipping a secret note into a work report, but with kites and spiritual stakes. You chuckle, thinking of a hunter hiding a tug's rhythm, like you'd bury a quip in a serious email. Ever keep a secret from a nosy boss? That's their daily grind flown on icy winds. You glance at a nearby kite, its hide etched with a seal motif, a nod to the signals guiding the band. The elder's grip ensures these rituals serve, the camp hunts succeed, paths stay safe, spirits are honored, but it's a tightrope. Guilds must please the elders while guarding their huaka, their signals, a dance of duty and devotion. You're hooked, feeling the hunter's tension, their kites, not just tools, but communal scripts. You recall that guild's snowy igloo, their chants sinking to Sila's rhythm. Those signals hold deeper meaning, sacred codes beyond the elder's rule, and you're about to unravel what these cryptic tugs truly whisper under Baffin's starry sky. As you slip past the council igloo, the camp's rhythm dog barks, wind moans, feels like an icy heartbeat. You're starting to grasp the hunter's world, their guilds bound to the elder's will, their kite signals the camp's voice in the tundra. Those sacred tugs are the Inuit's secrets, but their divine meanings run deeper, and you're itching to decode their celestial tales. You're crouched in the frosty dawn of a Baffin Island ice camp, the Arctic air sharp with the scent of frozen blubber and the faint crackle of snow underfoot, the aurora's glow fading above. The camp hums with the soft whine of sled dogs and the flutter of kites tethered nearby. But you're still chasing those kite signals, guiding Inuit hunters to map ice flows, their dips marking Sedna's sacred paths. Remember that hunter kneeling before the elder, his kite's dip, proving his loyalty. Those signals were the camp's mandate, but their meanings run deeper. A divine language of ice and spirits. Now, you're unraveling the hidden codes woven into these kite signals, and trust me, it's trickier than spotting a seal hole in a blizzard. Picture yourself huddled by a snow ridge, its icy crust glinting under starlight, as a hunter flies his kite, its caribou hide, taut, sending a series of tugs and loops. The signals aren't just movements. They're ciphers encoding vital messages about ice stability, seal grounds, or even spiritual warnings. A sharp tug might mark a safe flow, a slow loop warn of a crack's edge, while a double dip could signal a shaman's vision of Sedna's mood. In Inuit culture, where oral traditions ruled kites, were a silent script, their rhythms read only by hunters, elders, or shamans. Historically, by the 19th century, Inuit hunters in regions like Nunavut used such signals to navigate the Arctic's shifting flows, blending practical and spiritual knowledge to survive. You're squinting at the kite's swift tug, its rhythm hinting at a stable crossing, but only if you know the sacred key. Here's the quirky bit. Some hunters believed certain signals echoed in dreams, revealing Sedna's guidance for the next hunt. Imagine your kite texting you. Survival tips in your sleep sounds like an Arctic oracle, right? Historians still argue whether this was spiritual belief or a mnemonic trick. Did signals really echo? Or were hunters recalling patterns? You run your fingers along a kite sinew line, its tension grounding you as the hunter's loop unfolds. The slow loop, deliberate and steady, warns of a crack hidden under snow, meant for a trailing sled's driver. You're struck by the layer's practical meanings, like ice paths for hunters keep the band safe, while spiritual ones like Sedna's warnings bind the camp to the sea's will. It's like hiding a map in a dance, but for frozen stakes. You smirk, thinking of your own coded notes. Ever scribble something only you could crack? That's the hunter's art, flown in the Arctic's chill. You notice an elder nearby, his eyes tracing the kite's dip, decoding a seal ground's location with a nod. These signals are the camp's pulse paths, secured hunts, blessed spirits honored, but they're fragile. A misread tug could send a sled through thin ice, endangering kin, or misinterpret Sedna's mood, risking a failed hunt. You wince, imagining the hunter's stress. It's like misreading a coded DM, but with your band's survival on the line. You chuckle, picturing the hunter double-checking his loop like you'd triple-check a risky text. The signal's meanings are a dance of ice and sky, each tug a story only the initiated can read. You step back, the ridge's icy sheen stretching like a starry scroll. The kites are layered, practical for hunters, sacred for shamans, cosmic for the band's soul. You recall that gilled, snowy igloo, their chants mimicking Sela's rhythm. These signals aren't just earthly, they're celestial, tied to the stars, guiding the Arctic seasons. And you're about to grasp how cosmic alignments shape these cryptic tugs under Baffin's sacred sky. The elder's oversight kept them grounded, but the heavens gave them flight, and you're itching to trace that starry thread. As you linger, the camp's rhythm, dog barks, wind howls, feels like a coded pulse. You're starting to grasp the hunter's world, their kite signals, not just maps, but divine hymns tying flows to the sky. Those sacred tugs hold Inuit secrets, but their starry roots run deeper, and you're ready to explore their celestial weave. You're perched on a frozen ridge in the starry chill of a Baffin Island ice camp, the Arctic night sharp with the scent of icy brine and the faint flicker of blubber lamps casting shadows on snow. The tundra hums with the soft howl of wind and the flutter of kites tethered against the aurora, but you're still chasing those kite signals, guiding Inuit hunters to map ice flows, their loops encoding Sedna's warnings. Remember that hunter sending a slow loop to signal a crack's edge? His sacred tugs were a divine script, but their timing wasn't random. It was celestial. Now you're grasping how cosmic alignments shape these kite signal rituals, and trust me, it's more dazzling than the northern lights over a frozen sea. Picture yourself in a snow-cleared circle, the sky ablaze with constellations, the hunter's kite soaring above its hide, mirroring the stars' dance. For the Inuit, the heavens were a sacred map with stars like the Big Dipper or Polaris marking seasons, hunts, and spiritual tides. Kite signals, sharp tugs, slow loops were believed to align with celestial events, their rhythms amplifying their waka when flown under a full moon or Orion's rise. A double dip might sync with the Pleiades' ascent, signaling seal season, a long pull with the solstice for safe ice. Historically, by the 19th century, Inuit hunters in regions like Nunavut used basic astronomy tracking stars to time hunts and navigate flows, blending cosmology with survival. You're watching a hunter adjust his kite's tug, his eyes on Polaris, signaling a stable flow as the stars align for a winter hunt. Here's the quirky bit. Some hunters believed kites caught starlight, their signals stronger if flown under a clear sky. Imagine your kite glowing like a cosmic lantern. Sounds like an Arctic fairy tale, right? Historians still argue whether this was spiritual belief or environmental savvy. Did stars really bless signals, or were hunters reading night skies? You step closer, the ridge's icy crust crunching underfoot. The hunter's double dip, swift and rhythmic, marks a seal ground timed with the Pleiades climb to ensure a bountiful hunt. These cosmic signals aren't random. They're precise, tying the camp to Silas' sky and Sedna's tides. You're struck by the genius, how a sinew's pull syncs with a solstice's arc. It's like timing your playlist to a meteor shower, but for survival stakes. You smirk, thinking of your own stargazing nights. Ever feel the sky's rhythm? These hunters weave that rhythm into every tug. You notice a shaman nearby, his seal bone rattle shaking as he confirms the signal's alignment with Orion's rise. His role ensures the tug's truth. A mistimed loop could misguide a hunt, angering Sedna or leading sleds to thin ice. You wince, imagining the hunter's nerves. It's like misreading a cosmic GPS, but with your band's survival at stake. You chuckle, picturing the hunter squinting at Polaris like you'd check an app for directions. The signals are more than navigation. They're starry clocks guiding the camp's sacred and practical life. Hunting, crossing, worshipping. You run your fingers along a kite's driftwood frame, its hide taut as a starry canvas. The signal's meanings are layered, practical for hunters, divine for shamans, cosmic for the band's soul. You're hooked, seeing the ice camp as a celestial stage, each tug a hymn to the heavens. You recall that guild's snowy igloo, their chants syncing with Sila's will. These signals don't fly themselves. The tools, humble yet sacred, are the hunter's hands. And you're about to examine how they crafted these star-guided rituals under Baffin's sacred sky. The elders' oversight kept them grounded, but the stars gave them wings, and you're itching to grip that holy craft. As you linger, the camp's rhythm, wind moans, dog snarls, feels like a starry pulse. You're starting to grasp the hunter's world, their kite signals, not just maps, but celestial hymns tying flows to the sky. Those sacred tugs are the Inuit's soul, but the tools that shape them are its heartbeat, and you're ready to explore their divine power. You're crouched in the icy stillness of a Baffin Island ice camp, the Arctic dawn sharp with the scent of frozen seal fat and the faint crackle of a blubber lamp. Flickering in an igloo, the tundra hums with the soft howl of wind and the flutter of kites tethered against the fading aurora. But you're still chasing those kite signals, guiding Inuit hunters to map ice flows, their starry-aligned loops, signaling Sedna's sacred paths. Remember that hunter sinking his double dip with the Pleiades' rise. His celestial signals were divine, but they relied on tools as sacred as the ice itself. Now, you're examining the instruments used in these kite signal rituals, and trust me, it's earthier than a caribou hide stretched tight in a gale. Picture yourself beside a snow-packed workbench in an igloo, its surface cluttered with driftwood frames, sinew threads, and bone needles, their edges glinting under lamplight like tiny stars. Hunters wield these tools with reverence, their hands chapped from frost as they stitch kites or tug lines to map flows. These aren't just gear, they're tapu blessed with seal blood offerings to carry Scylla's grace. The driftwood frame holds the kite's shape, sinew threads control its signals, and a bone weight steadies its flight. Historically, by the 19th century, Inuit hunters in regions like Nunavut crafted kites from local materials, their tools enabling precise signals to navigate treacherous ice or guide hunts. You're watching a hunter, not a sinew line, his tug precise as he tests a loop, signaling a safe flow, his rhythm tied to Orion's arc. Here's the quirky bit. Some hunters believed their bone needles hummed when blessed guiding stitches for stronger signals. Imagine your needle vibing like a spiritual tuner. Sounds like an Arctic myth, right? Historians still argue whether this was spiritual belief or tactile focus. Did needles really hum, or were hunters feeling the wind's pulse? You lean closer, the igloo's chill numbing your fingers. The hunter's sinew thread taut as a bowstring sends a sharp tug to mark a seal ground its rhythm aligned with a full moon's glow. He uses a bone needle to mend the kite's hide, ensuring its loops stay true, while a driftwood toggle adjusts tension for windy flows. A small seal bone weight carved with a spiral steadies the kite against gusts. You're struck by the simplicity, how these rugged tools weave cosmic codes into the sky. It's like navigating with a homemade compass, but for Arctic stakes. You smirk, thinking of your own trusty gear. Ever treat a tool like it's magic? These hunters cradle their needles like holy relics. You notice a young hunter nearby carving a new driftwood frame, his hands raw from shaping its curve. Tools are sacred, handled only by guild members, blessed with chants to Sedna to keep their huaca strong. Young hunters earn the right through years of hauling sleds or mending lines, learning to signal only after proving devotion. A shaky tug or torn hide could misguide a hunt sending sleds through thin ice or angering Scylla. You wince imagining the master's scowl. It's like botching a GPS route, but with Sedna's judgment. You chuckle, picturing the young hunter polishing his toggle like you'd baby your phone, praying it doesn't fail. The tools demand care, stored in sealskin pouches blessed by shamans to preserve their sacred power. You glance at a kite's frame, its hide etched with a seal motif, a nod to the signals guiding the band. The hunters pair each tool with purpose frames for flight sinews, for signals, weights for balance. Their skill turns bone into starry scripts, each tug a nod to the heavens. You're hooked, seeing these tools as more than objects. They're the guild's soul, channeling Scylla's will into the ice. You recall that starry ridge, its Pleiades, guiding a seal-ground loop. But unity frays and robberies among hunters over these sacred signals simmer ready to flare. and you're about to witness the tensions brewing under Baffin's celestial glow. As you huddle by the lamp, the camp's rhythm dog whines, wind moans, feels like an icy pulse. You're starting to grasp the hunter's world, their tools not just shaping kites, but weaving Sedna's light into the Floes' secrets. Those starry signals are cosmic, but guild rivalries are all too human, and you're itching to see the sparks fly over their sacred tugs. You're skulking through the shadowed fringes of a Baffin Island ice camp, the Arctic night biting with the scent of frozen blubber and the faint creak of ice underfoot. The tundra hums with the soft growl of sled dogs and the flutter of kites tethered against the aurora. But you're still chasing those kite signals, guiding Inuit hunters to map ice floes, their starry loops pulsing with Sedna's will. Remember that hunter knotting his sinew line in the igloo, testing a seal ground signal. His sacred tools wove celestial rhythms, but not all guilds flew in harmony. Now, you're witnessing the rivalries among hunters over these kite signal rituals, and trust me, it's fiercer than a polar bear's snarl in a blizzard. Picture yourself hiding behind a snowdrift near an igloo, overhearing two hunters from rival guilds clash like ice cracking over a disputed loop signal. One's from a Baffin camp, famed for its tug patterns, the other from a Cumberland Sound clan known for dip signals. Their kite signals say flows, seal grounds are their pride, each guild claiming their rhythms hold the truest waka. Historically, by the 19th century, Inuit hunting guilds often tied to clans or regions competed for prestige, their signals securing prime hunting grounds or elder favor. A stolen signal could let a rival claim your flow, undermining your guild's mana. You're watching the Cumberland hunter accuse the other of mimicking a dip for a crack's edge, his voice sharp as a bone needle. Here's the quirky bit. Some guilds swore stolen signals angered Sela, sending storms to punish thieves. Imagine a blizzard snitching on a rival. Sounds like an Arctic curse, right? Historians still argue whether these tales were spiritual fears or competitive gossip. Did Sela really curse, or were guilds just throwing shade? You edge closer, the drift's chill seeping into your bones. The Baffin hunter snaps back, claiming his tug is older, blessed by a shaman's vision. These signals aren't just navigation, they're tapu tied to Sedna and ancestors. Stealing one risks spiritual wrath, but it also threatens a guild's survival. If a rival's loop draws your seals, your camp starves. You wince feeling the sting. It's like a competitor stealing your project's spotlight, but with your kin's bellies empty. You smirk, picturing the hunters glaring like you'd eye a coworker snagging your idea. The argument heats up until an elder steps in, his voice slicing through like a harpoon's thrust, warning of consequences. Feuds could spark raids, fracture alliances, or draw Sedna's ire if a disputed signal misguides a hunt. You recall that young hunter carving his driftwood frame, his hands raw under scrutiny. Rivalries make that pressure brutal. Guilds guard their signals with paranoia, teaching rhythms through secret chants or coded tugs to foil thieves. A leaked dip could let rivals claim your flow or sabotage a sled's path. You're struck by the fragility, how one slip can unravel a guild's waka. You chuckle, thinking it's like a family recipe fight. But with Sela's judgment on the line, you slip away, the camp's frost lingering on your skin. The guild's pride fuels their craft, but it breeds suspicion. A hunter from a rival camp might linger his smile, hiding a thief's intent to steal a tug's cadence. The men hunt on their kites steady, but you sense their watchfulness. These signals aren't just kites, they're battlegrounds, their rhythms a source of glory and strife. Ever deal with team drama over credit? That's the hunter's world, every tug a test of loyalty. You recall that Pleiades guided loop, its cosmic glow tied to Sedna. But shamans wield deeper influence, shaping these signals' divine weave, and you're about to see how their sacred hands guided the camp's kites under Baffin's starry glow. As you melt back into the camp's rhythm, dog snarls, wind moans, you feel the hunter's tension. Their kite signals are their heart, but rivalries cut deep, sparking feuds under Sila's gaze. Those sacred tugs bind them to the spirits, but shaman's will binds them tighter, and you're itching to step into their holy domain. You're huddled in the frosty pre-dawn of a Baffin Island ice camp, the Arctic air sharp with the scent of frozen seal pelts and the faint rattle of a bone charm swaying in the wind. The tundra stirs with the soft yip of sled dogs and the flutter of kites tethered against the fading aurora, but you're still chasing those kite signals, guiding Inuit hunters to map ice floes, their dips pulsing with Sedna's sacred rhythm. Remember that guild feud over a stolen dip signal hissing with Sila's stormy curses. Those sacred tugs were a battleground, but a deeper force shaped their weave shamans. Now you're revealing how shamans influence these kite signal rituals, and trust me, it's holier than a seal offering under a full moon. Picture yourself standing in a snow-cleared ritual circle, its edges marked with seal bones, as a shaman in a caribou parka shakes a rattle, his eyes tracing a hunter's kite loop. His chant to Sedna hums low, blessing the signal to guide a safe flow crossing. In Inuit culture, shamans were spiritual guides bridging earth and sea through rituals that tied hunting to spirits like Sedna or Silla. Kite signals, tugs for safe ice loops or seal grounds needed their blessing to carry Huasa, ensuring hunts honored the spirit's will. Historically, by the 19th century, Inuit shamans in regions like Nunavut oversaw survival practices, guiding hunters to align signals with cosmic tides like the moon's phases. You're watching the shaman nod, approving the loop's rhythm for a winter hunt, his rattle sealing its sacred power. Here's the quirky bit. Some shamans claim kite signals glowed in visions revealing Sedna's favor for their timing. Imagine a kite shining like a divine text. Sounds like an Arctic trance. Right. Historians still argue whether this was mystical insight or ritual drama. Did signals really glow? Or were shamans hyping their role? You step closer, the circles chill, numbing your face. The shaman's role is vital. His knowledge of tides ensures the loop's tug aligns with a lunar cycle, guiding a seal hunt. But his influence is a tight rein. A signal too bold like a tug, defying Sila's winds, could be deemed disrespectful, risking spiritual wrath or a failed hunt. You wince, imagining the hunter's dread. It's like crafting a sacred post, hoping it doesn't flop with the spirits, except here it's Sedna's judgment. You smirk, picturing the shaman squinting at a kite like it's a cosmic memo. The shaman's power isn't just spiritual, it's practical. Their chants and bone rituals, shaping signals that keep the camp's rhythm. You notice a hunter nearby, his hands clasped, awaiting the shaman's verdict. Shamans don't just bless, they dictate. A guild might plan a dip for safe ice, but the shaman decides its form, perhaps a double tug to echo Sedna's tides. They demand offerings, seal blood-bone charms, or chants before signals fly, ensuring the spirit's favor. Skipping these risks, tainting the signal's waka, dooming the hunt. You're hooked, seeing shamans as co-authors, their chants turning kites into sacred maps. It's not just oversight. It's a holy partnership blending hunters' hands with spiritual will. You chuckle, thinking of a hunter nodding to a shaman like you'd appease a picky client. Ever tweak a project for the boss? That's their vibe, but with Sela's gaze. You glance at the ritual circle's bones etched with seal motifs, a nod to the kite's sacred signals. The hunter's tugs born in guild igloos gain their soul through these rites, tying them to Baffin's starry pulse. You recall that guild feud, their stolen dip threatening their mana. Shamans keep such tensions in check, ensuring signals serve the camp, not clan pride. But mistakes happen. A mistimed tug or skipped offering could unravel the waka, and shamans are stern when signals stray. You're caught feeling the shamans sway their hands, steering the camp's secrets under Baffin's celestial glow. The hunter's craft is theirs, but shaman's blessings make it holy, and you're about to face the fallout when these sacred signals falter. As you slip from the circle, the camp's rhythm rattle shakes, wind moans, feels like a sacred pulse. You're starting to grasp the shaman's world, their influence turning kite signals into hymns for Sedna, binding hunters to spirits and ice. Those coded tugs are the camp's prayer, but missteps cut deep, and you're itching to see what happens when a hunter's kite strays. You're shivering in the dim glow of a Baffin Island ice camp, the Arctic dawn biting with the scent of frozen blubber, and the faint rattle of a shaman's bone charm swaying in the wind. The tundra stirs with the soft yip of sled dogs and the creak of ice, but you're still chasing those kite signals, guiding Inuit hunters to map ice flows, their loops blessed by shamans for Sedna's sacred tides. Remember that shaman blessing, a kite's tug in the ritual circle, his chant sealing its grace. His spiritual oversight kept the signals divine, but straying from them was a sin against the spirit and the band. Now you're facing the consequences for misusing these kite signal rituals, and trust me, it's graver than a sled plunging through thin ice. Picture yourself huddled in a snow-walled council igloo, the morning light glinting off seal hides, as a hunter stands before an elder, his head bowed, hands trembling under sinew cords binding his wrists. He's accused of mistiming a dip signal, leading a sled onto a cracked floe, and nearly losing a hunt. In Inuit culture, kite signals were the camp's lifeline, their tugs safe paths, seal grounds encoding survival, guarded by guilds and blessed by shamans. A misstep could anger Sedna, disrupt a hunt, or endanger kin. Historically, by the 19th century, Inuit communities like those in Nunavut enforced strict discipline with punishments like exile or shaming for errors threatening the band's survival or spiritual harmony. You're watching the hunter shrink, the elders glare colder than a winter gale. Here's the quirky bit. Some believed a mistimed signal could summon angry sea spirits, sending waves to curse the hunter. Imagine the ocean snitching on your slip sounds like an Arctic hex, right? Historians still argue whether this was spiritual fear or social control. Did spirits really curse? Or were elders hyping the stakes? You edge closer, the igloo's chill, numbing your hands. The elder's voice booms, recounting the crime the hunter, rushed by hunger, mistook a loop for a safe flow, nearly dooming a sled team. Punishment varies. Minor slips might mean extra offerings under scrutiny, but this error risks the band's hunt demanding exile. He's banished to a distant camp, his guild mark scarred from his kite, his name erased from the clan's tales. You wince, feeling the shame. It's like being canceled online, but with your whole band ghosting you forever. You smirk, picturing the hunter sweating his mistake like you dodge a group chat expose. Except here, it's Selah's wrath via the elders. You notice the guild's reaction. Hunters turn away, their loyalty to the signals stronger than pity. A mistimed dip doesn't just doom the hunter. It risks the camp's survival, shorting seals or cracking sleds. The elders' verdict restores balance, ensuring kites remain sacred maps. You're struck by the ripple effect, how one slip can shake the tundra. Hunts fail, spirits turn away, kin go hungry. You recall that young hunter carving his driftwood frame, his hands raw under pressure. This is why errors aren't just mistakes. They're betrayals of Sedna Selah and the elders. You chuckle, thinking of a hunter double-checking his tug like you'd triple-check a risky email. You glance at the igloo's wall, its snow etched with a seal motif, a nod to the kite's sacred signals. The hunter's fate is a warning misuse a signal, and you unravel the camp's icy web. Shaman's chants and guild oaths guard these tugs, but elders' spies lurk ready to pounce. You're hooked, feeling the hunter's dread, their world balanced on a kite string. You recall that guild feud over a stolen dip, the tension thick with Selah's shadow. But signals travel. Some kite practices spread beyond the Inuit. Through trade, their meaning shifting in new hands, and you're about to track how these sacred tugs roam the Arctic's frozen paths. As you slip from the igloo, the camp's rhythm dog barks. Wind moans, feels heavy with judgment. You're starting to grasp the hunter's burden, their kite signals, not just maps, but sacred pacts binding them to spirits and kin. Those divine tugs are the camp's pulse, but missteps cut deep, and you're itching to follow their trail beyond the Floes' starry glow. You're weaving through the frosty bustle of a Baffin Island trade camp, the Arctic dawn alive with the scent of smoked fish and the sharp tang of caribou hides bartered from distant sleds. The tundra pulses with the chatter of traders at the soft creak of kamutiks, but you're still chasing those kite signals, guiding Inuit hunters to map ice floes, their dips marking Sedna's sacred paths. Remember that exiled hunter banished for a mistimed dip in the council igloo? His error showed the signal's divine weight, but their rhythms weren't confined to the camp they roamed far. Now you're tracking how these kite practices spread beyond the Inuit through trade, their meaning shifting in new hands, and trust me, it's wilder than a kite soaring over a frozen sea. Picture yourself at a bustling trade post on the Arctic coast where Inuit hunters from Nunavut barter seal pelts with Cree traders and whalers from Hudson Bay, their stalls piled with bone tools and driftwood. A hunter raises a kite, its caribou hide taut sharing a tug signal with a Cree visitor teaching its rhythm to mark safe ice. These kite rituals, tugs for flows loops, for seals, traveled trade routes carried by hunters, traders, or storytellers. Historically, by the 19th century, Inuit trade networks stretched across the Arctic, linking communities like those in Baffin to Cree Innu, and even European whalers, with practices like kite signaling shared through cultural exchange. You're watching the hunter guard his signal's core, sharing only its form, not its sacred intent to guide a hunt. Here's the quirky bit. Some traders claimed kites whispered their signals when traded guiding new users to ice paths. Imagine your kite DMing you. Navigation tips sounds like a trader's tall tale, right? Historians still argue whether this was folklore or trade ploy. Did kites really whisper? Or were traders hyping their goods? You step closer, the camp snow crunching underfoot. The hunter's tug, a steady pull, marks a stable flow veiled in Silas imagery meant for a Cree hunter's sled. Guilds controlled this spread, knowing a leaked signal could let outsiders claim their flows or misread Sedna's tides, weakening the camp's waka. You're struck by the balanced trade shared the signal's fame, but secrecy kept their power in Nunavut. It's like posting a viral hack, but hiding the code glory without spilling the source. You smirk imagining the Cree puzzling over the tug like it's a cryptic app glitch. You'd rage quit. You notice a whaler, his eyes gleaming as he mimics the dip signal, hoping to use it in Greenland, but he misses its sacred timing. He's out of luck. The guild signals, like their solstice loops, are layered with spiritual metaphors, their meanings locked to outsiders. But trade blurred these lines. Inuit contact with Cree bands like those in James Bay spread kite signals as hunting aids, morphing into new rhythms for caribou trails. Whalers carried them to Greenland, where signals adapted to local ice, blending with Norse myths. You wince, recalling the exiled hunter's shame. Imagine his fear if his mistimed dip reached Hudson Bay, disrupting a hunt. You chuckle, picturing a hunter dodging questions like you'd sidestep a nosy friend's probe. You wander past a sled loading pelts, its driver humming a Kopkagiak's tug rhythm, a nod to Baffin's sacred cues. The signal's reach was vast. Trade routes carried them to Labrador, where Innu adapted loops, or to Alaska, where Yupik wove them into kayak hunts. You're hooked, seeing the signal's legacy ripple beyond the Inuit, their tugs a silent script of survival. You recall that guild's snowy igloo, their bone needles stitching Sedna's will. But these signals left a deeper mark, inspiring Inuit art beyond Floes. And you're about to trace how their sacred tug shaped the culture's canvas under Baffin's starry sky. As you melt back into the camp's rhythm, traders' shouts, sled creaks, you feel the signal's journey. Their sacred tugs, not just maps, but threads in the Arctic's vast web. Those kite rhythms carried the camp's voice far, but their legacy and art runs deeper, and you're itching to explore their broader stage. You're wandering through the frosty glow of a Baffin Island trade camp, the Arctic midday sun casting a pale shimmer on snow, the air alive with the scent of drying seal pelts and the faint tang of smoked fish from nearby fires. The tundra pulses with the soft chatter of traders and the creak of sled runners, but you're still chasing those kite signals, guiding Inuit hunters to map ice flows. Their tugs weaving Sedna's rhythms across trade routes. Remember that hunter sharing a dip signal with a Cree trader? Those sacred signals traveled far, but their deepest imprint lies in the Arctic's heart-shaping Inuit art. Now you're tracing how these kite rituals inspired the culture's canvas, and trust me, it's more vibrant than an aurora painting the ice. Picture yourself stepping into a communal igloo, its snow walls carved with swirling seal motifs, their curves echoing the loops of a hunter's kite signal. These aren't just decorations. Their echoes, the kite rituals, tugs, and dips woven into Inuit carvings, textiles, and bone etchings. The signals, motifs, spirals for safe flows, zigzags for seal grounds became symbols of survival and spirit, their coded meanings hidden in plain sight. Historically, by the 19th century, Inuit art in regions like Nunavut reflected hunting practices with carvings and tools adorned with motifs inspired by navigation aids like kites blending practicality with reverence for Sedna. You're running your fingers along a bone harpoon, its spiral, mimicking a kite's tug, feeling the hunter's craft in every groove. Here's the quirky bit. Some artisans claimed their carvings hummed during full moons, echoing kite signals to honor Scylla. Imagine a bone singing like a cosmic radio. Sounds like an Arctic artist's trance, right? Historians still argue whether this was spiritual inspiration or cultural flair. Did carvings really hum? Or were artisans riffing on the signal's mystique? You step closer, the igloo's air thick with blubber smoke and reverence. A sealskin drum nearby bears a zigzag, its pattern matching a kite's seal ground signal, while a woven basket shows spirals echoing a safe flow tug. You're struck by the connection, how the hunter signals born in guild igloos seeded Inuit art, turning tugs into cultural treasures. It's like a viral dance move spawning fan art, but here it's a people's soul in bone and hide. You smirk, imagining your favorite lyric carved on a wall cool, but it's not guiding a hunt. The signal's metaphors layered with Sedna's tides or Sela's winds, inspired carvings, amulets, even parka patterns etched with kite loops, each a nod to the flow's secrets. You wander to a ritual space where a soapstone figure depicts a hunter with a kite, its spiral, a coded prayer for seals. The hunters, steeped in guild secrecy, infuse their signals with wasa, their rhythms sparking art that resonated with elders and shamans alike. But it's bittersweet their names are lost, their guilds credited only in whispers. You recall that exiled hunter, his mistimed dip staining his legacy. His signals live in these carvings, but he's a ghost in the bone. You chuckle, picturing him, nodding at a drum's zigzag, anonymous, but proud. Ever create something epic and get no credit. That's the hunter's vibe, their art eternal, but their voices silent. You pause by a carved tusk, its seal motif glinting a nod to a kite's hunting signal. The signal's influence ripples through Nunavut's amulets, Greenland's textiles, even Labrador's stone figures etched with spirals. You're hooked, seeing the tugs as seeds, their cosmic and sacred meanings sprouting across Inuit culture. The hunter's sinews wove a frozen tapestry, their tools and chants rooting it in the tundra's heart. You recall that starry ridge, its Pleiades guiding a seal-ground loop. But the hunters themselves, they live dual lives, balancing kite signals with community duties, and you're about to explore how they juggled their sacred tugs under Baffin's starry sky. As you drift back to the camp's glow, the tundra's pulse dog barks, wind moans, feels like a carved hymn. You're starting to grasp the signal's reach, their kite-guided rituals, not just maps, but sparks for art that binds the Inuit. Those tugs wove a cultural identity, but the hunters' lives were the sinew, and you're itching to uncover their dual roles in this sacred, icy world. You're slipping through the twilight hush of a Baffin Island ice camp, the Arctic air soft, with the scent of cooling blubber and the faint creak of sleds settling in the snow. The tundra glows with the aurora's flicker, its pulse of dog yips and rustling hides fading into the starry night, but you're still chasing those kite signals, guiding Inuit hunters to map ice floes, their spiral tugs carving Nunavut's art with Sedna's grace. Remember that bone harpoon etched with a kite's loop in the communal igloo. Those signals shaped a cultural tapestry, but the hunters were more than signalers. Now you're exploring their dual lives, balancing sacred kites with community roles. And trust me, it's busier than a seal hunt at breakup. Picture yourself trailing a hunter through the camp's snowy paths, his kite sinew line coiled over his shoulder, his parka dusted with frost as he weaves past women sewing hides. By day, he's a guild master, flying kites to map floes, his tugs sinking with Orion's rise to guide a hunt. By night, he's a father, a storyteller, or a sled maker, teaching kin to skin seals or repairing kamutiks for spring. In Inuit society, hunters were communal anchors, their status from mapping ice tying them to duties like sharing meat or guiding youth. Historically, by the 19th century, Inuit camps like those in Baffin thrived on cooperative roles with hunters balancing sacred signals and daily tasks to sustain the band. You're watching him pause to settle a dispute over hunt, shares his voice calm but firm, like he's timing a kite's dip. Here's the quirky bit. Some hunters used signal metaphors in disputes, likening tempers to mistimed tugs needing Sedna's calm. Imagine settling a fight with pull steady like a safe flow loop. Sounds like a hunter's quip, right? Historians still argue whether this was leadership or cultural flair. Did hunters mediate with signal wisdom, or was it just Inuit banter? You follow him to a sled workshop where he inspects bone runners, his hunter's eye catching flaws like he'd spot a cracked floe. His dual life is relentless flows, demand precision signaling seal grounds under elder scrutiny, but the camp pulls him into storytelling, skinning, or teaching. You're struck by the grind, how he balances sacred tugs with earthly needs. It's like juggling a job and family, except your job chats with Sela and your family survives a winter. You smirk, thinking of your own multitasking chaos, ever burn out on a deadline. That's his life with sinews instead of keyboards. You notice him slip into a guild igloo, his hands adjusting a kite's frame to show a young hunter a double tug's rhythm. Even here, he's a mentor passing signal secrets while mending hides. But his mind's half on a council meeting about spring roots. The pressure's fierce. A mistimed signal could misguide a hunt, shorting meat, while neglecting kin dims his mana, weakening his guild's waka. You wince, feeling the weight. It's like bombing a pitch while your team needs you, except here it's Sedna's harmony at stake. You chuckle, picturing him practicing his tugs like you'd rehearse a big speech, hoping to nail both roles. You glance at his worn boots, a sign of his rugged life despite his skill. He's no elder, but his kites map Baffin's flows, inspiring soapstone seals etched with spirals. The guild fuels his pride, but the camp grounds him, his dual life a bridge between ice and kin spirits in survival. You're hooked, seeing how his sinew lines weave both signals and community, a thread in the Inuit's tapestry. You recall that exiled hunter, his mistimed dip, scarring his guild. Our hunter here lives, that fear balancing duty with devotion. You chuckle, imagining him dodging guild drama like you'd sidestep off as gossip. His world is a tightrope, but time shifts kites, and you're about to reflect on why these signal rituals faded like stars at dawn. As you ease into the camp's starry paths, the tundra's rhythm rattles, wind moans feels like a living signal. You're starting to grasp the hunter's world, their dual lives stitching sacred kites to the camp's heart. Those signal tugs were their manna, but eras change, and you're itching to explore why their rhythms vanished under Baffin's starry sky. You're drifting through the quiet twilight of a Baffin Island ice camp. The Arctic air soft with the scent of cooling snow and the faint hum of wind whispering through igloos. The tundra's pulse slows, dog yips fade, aurora's glow dims, but you're still chasing those kite signals, guiding Inuit hunters to map ice floes, their spiral tugs weaving Sedna's will into Nunavut's carvings. Remember, that hunter juggling kites and kin is sinew line steady. Despite a life split between sacred signals and storytelling, his dual role bound the camp's heart. But even the tautest strings fray. Now you're reflecting on why these kite signal rituals vanished, their divine rhythms fading like stars at dawn, and trust me, it's as poignant as a seal's last dive in a frozen sea. Picture yourself leaning against a snow-crusted igloo, its walls worn smooth by time, the once soaring kites etched with seal motifs dancing with Sila's winds, now silent their signals lost to the ages. The camps are empty, sinew still to guild's chants gone. Historically, by the early 20th century, Inuit life shifted under colonial pressures, with Canadian policies disrupting traditional hunts and forcing settlements. Modern navigation like maps and compasses introduced by whalers replaced kites, while climate shifts altered flows breaking their patterns. The oral traditions guarding signals unrecorded in a culture-prizing practice faded as elders passed or youth turned to new tools. You're touching a cracked driftwood frame, its spiral faint feeling, the weight of a lost map. Here's the quirky bit. Some elders claimed Sedna hid the signal's silencing kites to shield them from outsiders' eyes. Imagine the sea goddess locking her own code sounds like an Arctic vault, right? Historians still argue whether this was spiritual coping or deliberate secrecy. Did Sedna guard the signals or did progress erase them? You step onto the floes. The ice's hush heavy. The hunter's secrecy, their strength was their downfall. Signals taught through guild chants and sinew tugs relied on living hands. As settlements broke camps, schools replaced stories, and warming seas shifted ice, the rhythms frayed. Early ethnographers like those in the 1900s noted Inuit kites, but missed their sacred cadence, their meanings lost to outsiders. You wince, imagining a hunter's grief, his Kupkugiak's loop half forgotten. It's like losing a family tune mid-verse, except it's a culture's soul. You recall that exiled hunter, his mistimed dip, scarring his guild, his fear of error, kept signals pure, but doomed them when camps dissolved. You glance at a soapstone seal, its spiral fading a ghost of a safe flow tug. The signals linger in fragments, bone carvings, woven baskets, parka patterns, but their meanings dimmed, reduced to art by those who couldn't read them. Shamans' chants, guild oaths, elders' oversight, all faded under new tools and faiths, leaving tugs that echo only in the tundra's heart. You smirk, thinking it's like a group chat, dying when the vibe shifts heartbreaking, but time marches on. You chuckle softly, picturing a hunter's ghost, sighing at a museum kite, its signal clueless to its waka. The Arctic feels still its floes cradling the last starlight. The signal story of sinew spirits and guilds endures in their art, a silent hymn to Inuit survival. You're starting to feel their loss, a language flown for eternity, yet lost to time, but also their strength, how they mapped a frozen world under starry skies. Those hunters with their dual lives and sacred tools wove more than kites. They wove a world, its echo lingering in every tug. The tundra's glow softens Baffin's flows, blurring into the night, their seals and spirals fading like whispers under a starry veil. You're standing by a quiet igloo, the snow cool beneath you, the breeze humming through ancient ice. The hunter's kites, bright with tugs and starlight tide flows to spirits their sinews, singing Sedna's will. Though their signals dimmed, their spirit hums in the carvings in every spiral, catching moonlight. Let the tundra's murmur cradle you the stars, a gentle guide. Close your eyes, feel the Arctic's ancient embrace, and drift into a dream where the kite signals still soar. Good night.